welcome back to my channel. My name is T and I love all things skin and beauty, and today we're finally playing with the new Byredo palette. And I'm just so excited to play with this new palette. I already knew that I was going to get the Byredo palette whenever it was going to be released because they do it every single year. But for some reason this year it was released earlier than usual. And so when I first saw the color story, I was like, yeah, I'm still going to get it because I just love the formula of Byredo, and it's still a color story that I can still use. And it's going well, or it goes well with, you know, the season that is coming up. We're currently in winter. However, it's giving spring vibes, but at the same time, you know, there is, you know, light and dark colors and the palette, the way that it's split. And I felt that that was an interesting choice for Byredo to create a color story where, in a way, it's kind of like split down the middle, where you have light versus, you know, dark. There's pastels, there's, you know, deeper tones, and especially this like packaging here, which it basically represents at least a color story from the website, and the, you know, creator who created this palette is the co-creative director of Byredo. And basically it is symbolizing a volcano in Naples, and Naples is basically where he was born in originally. So it's definitely inspired by, you know, his place of his origin. And when you really look at the palette itself, so there's a lot of depth on one side, and on the other side it's much lighter, like in a way kind of like pastel colors. And then also the way that it's split, it kind of reminds me of paintings that I've seen when I studied, you know, art history in college and really did like thesis and, you know, essays on this. But it kind of reminds me of like a landscape. So like you have like the first row, which is the sky, the middle row is the land, and the bottom row is the activity that happens during like a volcano eruption versus a volcano who is not, you know, active. And his inspiration was of the volcano in Naples, and I'm gonna kind of like butcher this name, but it's Vesuvio, which is the name of the actual Byredo palette that they came out with. So it gets its inspiration from that of, you know, contrast. And that's something that was noted, that the co-creative director who created this color story wanted to depict in a color story. So it's definitely different than the Bibliophilia palette, but both of them have 18 shades. Bibliophilia has, you know, tones of like mixed with earthy and, you know, vibrant red tones, and, you know, beige and tan. And up until this point, it houses the deepest, darkest shade that they've came out with these palettes. So it's gonna give you a lot more depth, where this doesn't have like the most like deepest, shade to use in the new palette, Vesuvio. But it's inspired again by dramatic landscapes and colors of Naples and the volcano. And there's, pastels, and there's, fiery red and earthy tones that kind of resemble, a side where you have a volcano that is not active, right? Or is known to not be active. And then out of nowhere, all of a sudden it is an active volcano, and how, volcanoes can also change the landscape. It can change like the sky and the land and, below as well. It's just reminded me of paintings that I would see in art history and how artists would depict, landscape paintings during the time of where it was active. One of my favorite landscape painters is J.M.W. Turner. The way that he expressed the landscape and what was happening around it, and just at the time, especially, like, it was all being in the moment during that time, being in the moment, and recording things that were happening that were very active at the time. Like, the season, the weather that also changes the landscape, and how it changes, the ocean and the waves and the color of the sky. And J.M.W. Turner was one of the artists who really depict that with his paintings. And I'll also put up, examples of his work. His work is just amazing. I think one of my favorite works of his is the typhoon coming in. It kind of depicts basically a ship, kind of like a shipwreckage during a typhoon coming in. And, there were people in the ocean being thrown overboard. It's just a lot of active, and to see it expressed in his landscape painting, you could kind of feel the movement and like the terror and just like the expression of that painting and what it was trying to emphasize and depict. So yeah, one of my favorite landscape painters. But also Claude Monet. Like, Impressionism was really something that I was thinking of too, because there are like different types of, artists during that time when Impressionism started, and one of them was Claude Monet. And one of the first paintings to start off Impression was an impression of a sunrise during a landscape in the ocean. And basically Impressionism is just giving you like a, kind of like a depiction, a impression of a landscape without really giving you like a full painting of a landscape, and having your eyes kind of complete the painting yourself, because it still gives you different important things and themes that, make you remind yourself, or make your eyes remind yourself of what it is that they are painting. And I just thought, like, this, I think, is probably one of my favorite, curations of Byredo, just because of the story behind it. But pretty much this is inspired by that, by, contrast and active, non-active, light, dark, quiet versus loud. And so where bibliophilia was really about, like, being a bookworm, being, fascinated by, books, and, it kind of depicted that in terms of like during like medieval times, and scripture and books, and being in a library and bookshelves, and you kind of like feel that theme. Whereas for this one, it's a little bit different the way that he did it. But you know, again, it's still like a vibrant color story. I think most of their color stories are still like, it has that that vibrant feel to it. Even if it's like, you know, a lot of like blues and, you know, grays and reds and golds and browns, you still kind of feel that vibrancy of it. There's not going to be a color story that's just very dull, and that's something that I love about Byredo. And in this one, it has like, you know, pastels, it has golds, oranges, blues, pinks, and the formula is, you know, the same similar formula that you'll see in the bigger palettes, where it's a lot more softer, a lot more luxurious, and it has mostly, you'll see that Byredo palettes that are in the bigger format barely have like mattes. Like you might see maybe like, you know, 1, 2, maybe 3, but like most of it, it's like, you know, satins and metallics, and the cream to powder formulation that they have is exquisite, and easy to blend. The color payoff has always been amazing for me, and the blendability of the formula as well. It just gives off of a luxurious application. So I'm curious about the color story, or, you know, the look that I'm going to come up with for this palette. But for bibliophilia, and, you know, I think I have 5 of the 6 palettes that came out. I don't have like the first one that they did when they started to make the bigger palettes, but in bibliophilia, and my video should be uploaded of me playing with the palette for the very first time, even though like I've been had this in my collection. I just haven't had time to play with it. But this is bibliophilia. And as you can see, it's a lot more earthy tones. It's neutral, but there's some vibrancy there, and it houses the deepest mattes, the deepest color that is in the Byredo catalog, which is, you know, this palette itself. And you know, I've had fun playing with this palette, and, you know, you can get a lot of like depth, a lot of like, you know, grungy, neutral, but also vibrant, you know, eye looks with this palette. It's a very interesting palette, especially like the silvers and the gold shimmers and the red metallic shades. So I definitely had fun with this palette. And as you can see, it's definitely different, right? It's not, you know, the way that they chose this color story is definitely different. And pretty much all of their palettes, all the color stories are going to be different when it comes down to their palettes, because there's always going to be someone on the team to curate the color story. And this one just happened to be the color story from the co-creative director. But with this one, it's definitely different. You have a lot more, definitely a lot more metallics and shimmers on here, and satins that are very like shimmery, not like the soft satins that you would find in the bibliophilia palette. Where it seems like it's a matte, but it's not a matte. You end up discovering that it's actually a satin. Well, but with this one, you can really see like the shine peeking through of the satins. And then you probably have like maybe like 1 or 2 mattes here. So let's go over some of the shades and the color stories and the type of, you know, formula of each shade. So you have Delicate Pastel, which is a satin, Painted Horizon, which is a shimmer, a Vesuvio Veil is a metallic, Blurred Sky is a metallic, Smoky Blue is a shimmer, Eternal Vesuvio is a shimmer. Golden Halo is a metallic. Gold Lava is a metallic. Magma Orange is a shimmer. Painting is a matte. Flowing Horizon is a metallic. Burnt Umbra is a matte. Pastel Cloud is a satin. Fiery Pink is a shimmer. Volcano Aura is a metallic. Velvet Veil is a metallic. Volcanic Purple is a metallic. And Painted Memories is a metallic. Now, how many mattes do we have? We have about like 2 mattes, just what I, depicted. Like, you could kind of like tell when you look at the palette, like most of them are like satins and shimmers and metallics. And this is the thing, if you love mattes a lot, this is just not the palette for you. It's just not the palette for you. If you can't like gravitate towards other palettes to get like a look going when you're using a palette that has mostly other, formulas like shimmers, metallic, satins, and barely any mattes, this is not the palette for you. And it's fine. It's fine. I've already seen a couple of people kind of like post that, I'm gonna return the Byredo Nude palette, and it's like, it's just not for everybody. And that is fine. That is fine. I think this is definitely different, and every single color story that I've seen so far in the bigger palettes have been different, haven't been the same. And that's something that I truly love about Byredo and the themes that they come up with, and just how luxurious their curations are, and the formula. So I'm happy. I just have to now play with the palette, create a look, and, pretty much decide, which one do I prefer, which, I'm gonna be for real. I still love the Mineralscapes. Like, I still love that palette, and I think it's because I love color. And this is giving you a lot of color too. It's giving you a lot of pastels, a lot of vibrancy, contrast in there, and I have a feeling I'm gonna have fun with this palette. So I'm gonna get ready to, put on my base, and then we're going to get started on the eyeshadow palette. I will let you know the products that I am using. Everything will be linked in the description box below. But without further blabbering about how intrigued and excited and about our history and we just got to put this on my eyelids, okay? I just have to. So without further ado, let's get into this. Get ready with me. All right, I did want to get on camera because this is the first time I'm using this, and this has been in my collection for I don't know how long. This is the Gworly Pop. This is the, I think it's like the pink one. Yeah, it's the pink one. I don't know if this is still available. I think it is. I don't know. I know some of them were on sale a while ago at Sephora. Yeah. So we're gonna try this for the first time. I'm gonna go in with my Refer brush. Let's see, what brush do I want to use for this? All right, I'm gonna use this brush, and I'm gonna go into the pink cream shade first. I'm hoping it's like It Girl from Danessa. So let's see what this is giving. Okay, definitely, I might need a different brush for this one though. Might need like a more flexible brush, but you can still see it packing on, so that's good. Go to the other side of the cheek. I like the color. Okay, this looks nice actually. This is a nice color. It does remind me a little bit of It Girl from Danessa Myricks. Okay, all right, I'm gonna flip the other side of the brush, and now we're gonna dip into that powder. Ooh, that is a lot of powder. I don't know about that. That is a lot of powder. Ooh. Ooh. That is a lot of powder. Definitely a lot of powder here. Let me go in with my other brush to kind of soften this up. I'm not taking any more product. I'm just trying to soften the blush up a bit and spread that color evenly on the cheeks. And definitely the Refer brush is shedding. Ooh, that's like a downside of like natural hair brushes, especially like goat hair brushes, because they can shed a lot. So if you're not used to hair being on your face, or if you don't have pets that can shed, it's definitely gonna be annoying for you. All right, now I'm gonna go in with the highlighter. It's definitely glittery. I don't know how I feel about this one. It's definitely not like a soft highlight. It's very like chunky. It's not like the Kevin Aquan highlighter with the Neo blush. But so far, so good. All right, so the products that I've used so far, I'm using the Danessa Myricks, the Blurring Balm Powder. I'm in the shade 8.5. I'm also using the Catrice True Skin High Cover Concealer. The one where the Dolpha just fell off, but yeah, I'm using that. I think I'm in the shade for this one. 92 Warm Spices. Next, I showed you already that I'm using the One Size palette, the cheek palette, and Gworly Pop. I am also using Makeup by Mario, the bronzing stick or sculpting stick, and Dark Deep. I am also using DIOR, the DIOR bronzer I laid on top of the cream bronzer. And for powders, for under eye powders, I'm using the Pat McGrath Skin Fetish Sublime Perfection Blurring Under Eye Powder and Baby Pink. And then over the face for powder, I'm using Laura Mercier Translucent Loose Setting Powder Ultra Blur and Translucent Medium Deep. So far, those are the products I have on my face. I just finished doing my eyebrows, and I'm using the Sephora Fluff and Fix Brow Wax. Everything will be in the description box below. And now we can move on with the palette, because I think I'm pretty much done with my face. So this is the palette. Swatches and everything will be in the video. And I'm going to definitely play with one of the mattes, which is Burnt Umbre for Death for sure. I don't know exactly what type of look that I'm thinking about creating, but you know, I have a feeling that I'm gonna like this palette. Just behind the curation, you know, so I think I'm really going to like this one, so we shall see. All right, going in with the shade Umber, and I'm just gonna put this on the outer corner just to kind of like draw out the shape of my eye the way that I want, because most of these are satins and metallics, so I want to make sure I lay the matte color first on my eyelid and then move on to the other shades. And then I might go in with the other matte, which is kind of like a cool like a cool kind of warmish brown that is in the shade Painting, and I might use that for the transition, and you know, might blend the two together for the crease to deepen up the crease. So going back in with the same brush, this is the Refer B3 brush, and I'm just gonna quickly go over the top to kind of like lay that shape that I want. So this will be a transition shade, and then I'll just blend the two together. I'm seeing a little bit of sparklies in this shade, so it might be a matte with like some sparkles in it. But yeah, I definitely see that coming in, so that's interesting. Doing it like that, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other eye, just to map that shape that I want before I go in with the shimmers, metallics, and things like that. I might do separate looks, so like back to back, similar to what I did with the Danessa Myricks palette. I think you can do a lot of looks with this palette. All right, next I'm gonna dip in between the two mattes to get a little bit of some depth into the crease, and I'm gonna bring it up a little bit into the transition shade, because I definitely want this to show over the shimmers once I start layering the shimmers and the mattes. So I'm going to bring this up a bit more. One thing about like their formulas is that once everything is all blended in, it pretty much looks seamless, because of how luxurious the formula is. All right, next I'm going to put on my glitter primer from NYX. And we're gonna get started with some of the metallics and some of the satins. I want to try that more of like a icy metallic shade, either metallic or shimmer. I think it's honestly could be metallic because it's more shiny. But it is Blurred Sky, which I also went over the shades. So let me see, which one is it? So we used Burnt Umber, which is a matte, and we used Painting, which is also a matte. I want to go in with Blurred Sky, and Blurred Sky is a metallic. And then maybe I can go in with Delicate Satin or Painted Horizon. I feel like that's gonna bring out, maybe I can use it for the inner corner, one of those, and then go in with either Pastel Cloud or Fiery Pink. Which Fiery Pink is a shimmer and Pastel Cloud is a satin. So let's do Pastel Cloud first and see what that looks like. So we're gonna go in with Pastel Cloud, which is pretty light, so we'll see. But definitely a nice shade, and you could kind of layer it. You don't have to just pick one. So we can also go in with Fiery Pink, like so, as you can see. And if you want more of a metallic, then there's also a metallic pink shade, which is Volcanic Purple, which is not really the way that I would describe it. It's kind of like a magenta maybe, but maybe it is purple, because now looking at it now as like I'm swatching it, it does lean more purple. So I can also go back in and maybe instead of having this fiery pink here, I can go on top and just pat it down like so over it. Right, and then go in with Fiery Pink. Like so. So we have that situation going, right? And then I can go in with either, what is this one? Painted Horizon in the inner corner, which I can then pick this brush here, which is one of the Nikita Rose eye brushes in N24. Take some of that. Like so, right? And now that we, know exactly what we're going to do, I can go back in this time with the brush, because the first shade, that the Pastel Cloud shade, is definitely pretty light. So you need a brush that's really gonna pack in that color. So I can go back in, right? And then now you pretty much see it much more clearly. And then after that, I can then go back in with Fiery Pink and tap it like so. And then go back in with Volcanic Purple. And that kind of creates like a nice monochromatic type of color story, where it's like the lighter pink and then it goes a little bit darker, and then you have like the darkest shade, a shimmer metallic shade. Goes pretty well. And then let me just get some more of the other shade here, which is Painted Horizon. And that's a pretty look there. Right, it's very spring-like. There's depth to it. And then definitely the stars of the show is that metallic, the metallic shade though. Right, so you have like a nice color story right there on your eyelid, you know? And we're gonna do the same thing on the other side here. Now that I know what shades I want to lay down, I'm going to clean the brush that I've used, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Going to pack on the lightest pink, like so. Right. And it definitely, the satin too is very nice and shiny and very like soft. And then I can go back in with Fiery Pink. Put that in the middle. Or you can also switch the order too. I think that might be pretty cute as well on the eyelid. Right, and then go back in with Volcano Purple. Like so. As you can see. And it's pretty. It's a pretty like color story on your eyelid. Yeah, their metallics are very nice and soft, and so are their satins too. Very, very nice. And then I'm gonna go back in with Painted Horizon. Did I get it right this time? Yep, Painted Horizon. I'm learning. All right, and then go back in with Painted Horizon on the inner corner. Draw it up a bit, like so. And this is just pretty nice. Yeah, I'm definitely going to do multiple looks with this. This is definitely an interesting color story for sure, right? It's not what you would expect on like an eyelid, but it goes pretty well together. I think I'm really obsessed with this Painted Horizon shade. It's very nice. And you can still see the matte shade that I laid on my eyelid first. Kind of reminds me of like a cloud. Like what a cloud would look like if a volcano were to erupt, with the smoke coming from the volcano into the sky, right? That's nice. Kind of gonna lay more. I feel like this is getting lost a bit, so I'm gonna lay a little bit more on volcano purple. And then going back in with Fiery Pink, and then Pastel Cloud. Yeah, much better. Honestly, this looks pretty good. Yeah, I kind of like this look. I kind of want to play more with this color story that's the first row. I think that would be like a great color story if you stick to just that to create like a nice neutral look. Yeah, this is pretty good. Now my lights are probably, you know, not the best, but this is definitely an interesting color story for me, and I'm definitely curious. So I'm definitely gonna do multiple looks with this one. But I'm gonna put on my mascara, my lip, and close out the video. All right, so basically I'm pretty much done. Let me show you the lip that I chose. So I went in with a couple, and I know it's crazy, but I went in with Juvia's Place Luxe Lip Liner in Cola. And then after that, I went in with two LYS lipsticks. One is in Moody and the other one is in Optimistic. Optimistic is more of like a pinkish shade. And then Moody is more of like a kind of like a brown, like, you know, natural shade. Your lips but better type of shade. I put Optimistic in the middle and Moody in the outer corners of my lip. And then I put on Give Me Glow Magic Slick, which is a lip oil and hustler. It's like kind of reminds me of the glaze from the May Pang and Blend Bunny collab, but it's like a pink and it goes from like a gold to like kind of like a hint of green. But like once you put it on the lips, you don't really see it that much. But when you start to put it on, you see it. And then as it spreads, it kind of like disappears. It gives you more of like a nice little like sheen, a nice little shine to the lip. I don't know if they still have this on their website. They're going through like a new branding. They might keep this, they may not, who knows. But these were also on sale when they were doing their brand or new branding kind of like sale, and they were getting rid of like the old packaging. So they might still have it. But I think that's pretty much it. Everything else that I've tried on will be in the description box below. And you know, I can go on about this color story. I can go on about this palette and the inspiration, you know, my love when it comes down to like landscape painting and the inspiration behind the story of the creative director. Real quick, I went in with another shade in the under eye, the under eyelid, this right here. And then I used the Volcanic Aura, this shade here. So it looks like really nice there as well. And where, you know, under the eye. But yeah, so I pretty much had fun playing with this palette. Again, I think the color story and the inspiration behind it is really amazing, fascinating. And there's like a connection that I also have with this palette from being like an art history, creative art nerd. But so far, I can't wait to create more looks with this palette and really dive even deeper. I feel like you can create different kinds of like color stories, and I definitely want to go by row as well, or by the different sides. So basically, on this side, you have like the deeper tones, and on the other side, you have the more lighter tones. So there's contrast in how they created the color stories as well, and what each color would be that represents contrast, and you know, whether if it's light or if it's, you know, dark. So I definitely want to use those color stories in mind the way that it was created in the palette. But anyways, I had so much fun playing with this palette, and really diving deep into, you know, some of the shades. Again, like the texture is soft, it's creamy, it's easy to like blend, it's luxurious the way that it glides under the eyes, and it's rich and pigmented. There's so many things that I can go on and on about, but real quick, I do want to make another note is that the inspiration that was inspired by you know, the color story was actually 18th century paintings, landscape paintings of Vesuvio. And I again going back to landscape painters and my obsession with them, I definitely see how the way that it's laid out, how it's also depicting a landscape painting as well, of like a non-active volcano versus a active volcano. It's just amazing. And so I just want to end with one quote that the co-creative director said when he got the inspiration and curated this palette and the color story, was that he says, "I was born in Naples. It's a place where intensity is woven into the everyday. Vesuvio is part of that emotional landscape. It's majestic and silent, and that contradiction felt powerful. I wanted the palette to reflect that." Again, such an amazing quote, and it really shows that in the palette. And so I'm not returning it. I'm keeping my Byredo palette. Y'all can do whatever y'all want with that if it wasn't interesting, or it's not much of like a use in your collection. Like if you don't see yourself picking it up every single day, which granted, I mean, for someone like me, I have a lot of palettes. I have a big collection, so I don't plan myself going into it every single day. Especially like this is limited edition. Once it's gone, it's gone. I kind of want to save it, but at the same time, I'm definitely going to do multiple look videos with this palette, so stay tuned for that. Right now, Bibliophilia should already be on my channel. Grounded should be on my channel. The third look of Danessa Myricks Lightwork 7 Freedom palette should be on my channel. Trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, Blend Bunny and May Ping collab. I hope I'm pronouncing her name, but I finally put it on my channel as well. That's also a great, interesting collab, and probably the most creative collab that I've seen so far. That's like very artistic and inspired by something that's just very interesting too, which is mold. So if you haven't checked out that video, please do. That color story and the collection, I had so much fun with that. But yeah, I'm gonna go now. I feel a little bit embarrassed that I, geeked out over this color story and landscape and art history and things like that. But I am the one that if I travel to another country, I always go and visit museums. I am a big art nerd. And if you enjoyed my, geek session out, then, thank you. If you like what you see, feel free to subscribe, like, comment, tell me about your thoughts on the Byredo new collection. Did you get it? Did you pass on it? Do you feel inspired, and now do you want to try out the palette because, I inspired you or made that connection that probably often gets lost, but the more that you dive deep into some of these curated palettes of Byredo, you get to really understand and really see the inspiration of the color story. And this one is very creative as always with Byredo, and I had so much fun. So without further ado, make sure that you love yourself, be kind to yourself, and love your skin. And I hope you have an amazing day. Bye.